The main spiritual crisis is when you discover that you have been fooled. Then it's not money or life, but culture or life. Life controls and regulates itself. So you see with squirrels, with cats, with cows, they don't actually need an owner. Have you ever noticed that? World geese don't need an owner either. As soon as they have an owner, the crisis begins. So he might save on food or exercise. Or does she want to fry one day? Or something like that. Culture would be nice if it was just something like, I don't know what the forester calls it, game care or something like that. That you sometimes support the forest a little, but I don't know whether you need real forest support or whether you need torrent support. So culture is the beginning of regulating something that doesn't actually need regulation. When I studied theology in the USA, adult education was a very important topic. And the topic of random learning, and they said that random learning is the most efficient way. And when we do adult education, we first take it seriously, that they are constantly continuing their education anyway on topics that interest them, for example, in the area of hobbies. So learning takes place all the time in extracurricular areas. That was the theme of pedagogy, the suppressed one with Paulo Freire, that people are not objects that we have to dispose of, but that they have actually always been self-learners, and that it is now very important to support and promote these abilities. However, yes, so the idleness is when you discover that you don't actually need rulers and authorities, and when self-regulation starts to work in you again, not only with a crunch, but with everything hurting, then you discover that those who say, I support you, I am for you, perhaps you didn't even give a permanence, but rather, maybe you wanted to be promoted in a completely different area. For example, I always wanted to go on expeditions, especially with animals, or by bike through Africa. I live in the GDR. That was difficult. So, I was rather happy that the Soviet Union always let Algerians and Vietnamese in and in. That's what I mean by external regulation. The mystic simply takes total responsibility for his self-regulation again, and therefore develops rapidly. And then he discovers how traumatizing culture actually is, which promised him the highest and best. If you look closely, as a woman, you will discover that shoes are your enemy. So take a look at what those toes look like in there. Mine, for example, are now spread apart for grip, and my arched feet have such a wonderful arch that I could simply jog 10 kilometers in Berlin on normal stone slabs, even without padding. My feet, which were previously broken, and where ankles and nerves were squeezed together, were increasingly springy, but I had to be rebuilt as a symbol for the entire human being, that you get your elasticity back, that women not only offer themselves roles for everything and praise and criticize you and box yourself into these roles as they used to in one that was much too narrow. Skinny jeans that you can no longer sit down in these sausage skins. You can stand for this for a long time. You don't live to fulfill roles, but the roles should serve in life. Women can't watch this anymore. Most of them only develop into a mother role, but not into the self-confident beauty of the flower of, here I am beautiful, and anyone who doesn't recognize my beauty is out of luck. But that's not the battle of the sexes or anything like that. So which squirrel, if ignored, starts a battle of the sexes? The rose blooms and is beautiful even if no one recognizes its beauty. So mysticism is the way into life, and in this respect, monks often live alone, because only as an individual at a distance do you realize what really serves you. So, what makes you really big, wide, and light that makes your frozen, buxom, harassed energies flow again? And this awakening is most certainly dealing with, sexual assault, physical dream places. For example, my father was always the bully in the family. My mother always just threatened me that she could effectively kill me. Not a single bruise from her, okay? when I freaked out and repeatedly smashed a solid rubber heel into my face, but then I pursed myself. My lower ears got that and the window pane I ended up in. Okay. I had to pay for it behind her, but never even got a cut pond. So for me it became more of a topic of psychological trauma and mental trauma. They are much more differentiated, and mysticism goes into these areas. These are areas that you notice in my super clear field of consciousness, is love, is joy, but is also fear of death, is hatred, is completely pent up against anyone. I could murder others, but actually don't feel like it anymore. What do I actually want? Is disorientation just disorientation? What is it actually about? And at some point you realize, or what is my calling? What does God want from me? He wants you to enjoy life. You're gone yourself. You should just exist. Just like there are daisies in the meadow, and just as there should be roses and squirrels. You are not here as a farm animal. And if you allow yourself to be used, then you realize that this is a currency. Is the deal right? Then you may look beautiful and be an adornment of the house, but then pay attention. What do you get for it? So, mysticism is the end of the livestock man or the utility core. This is the end of a culture that only uses life, uses it remotely, wears it out. When you are big and strong and self-regulated, you don't need so many guardians and protectors. You are there to be big and strong. And now that sounds crazy. I have shared the Mystic Play sound files with those who were at Mystic Play. Most people say the beginning is boring. There's nothing interesting about Mystic in there at all. I have to grin. Because what I'm getting at is, if you're normally self-regulated, you're a mystic, telepathically connected to Source. But most people don't trust themselves to do more than be individual, strong beings. And the meaning of life is not in relationships, just as it is not in career or success or victory. In Greek philosophy there is the theme of ousia in the philosophy of essence, i.e. being and accidents, i.e. from Aristotle. So what is the essence and what are additional properties? When I was studying theology in the 1980s, that was towards 1990, theology was so bold as to claim that let's resolve the issue of ousia, that there are only relationships, there are only relations, have fun. Then there is a limit in the bucket. I can't do Iker, and Shenner says I'm just relation, so that's taking care of his territory. So even swans on land look after their territory and defend it and don't say I'm just a relationship and stuff like that. It's all gibberish. It makes you disoriented and defenseless. Every being takes up space. It is a certain energy that tolerates some things and does not tolerate others. Yes, so when you begin to rest within yourself again, self-controlled, separated, aware of your own strength and your own force field, then you can increasingly differentiate between inside and outside. Before I was through theology, I was so boxed in the wrong direction, all over the place, that I thought, oh, relationships are the most important thing. I always wonder about the anachorates, pillar saints, the great Antonios. They simply withdrew as individuals, great individual leaders, who first collected and organized their energy, and then appeared before the people, and then acted like a magnet. It's even harder for women to understand with our women and mother values. But what kind of power and creative power do you think you will have once you are aware of your feminine nature for yourself? So, if you are healthy and on your own, then all these so-called mystical properties come by themselves. The most important thing in telepathy is to learn to distinguish between inside and outside, because the culture only lives in relationship, and faith relationship is the highest and most important. No, first of all the self-relationship, self-regulation, and that's why he doesn't notice that he constantly mistakes other people's feelings for his own and other people's thoughts for his own. Angelennes Zouche. But also thoughts. Eki liked to do telepathy experiments and even sent sentences to a so-called non-mystic house guest. Mostly they were orders and he obeyed immediately, so the people were not mystically trained. Only dead tap made it work. because otherwise they would have noticed that the sentence was sent to me. That was not my thought. That is not my impulse to act. So nothing is easier than telepatry. When you rest within yourself, you can easily notice when someone else is focusing on you from a distance, when your energy level suddenly changes. The funniest thing is, our turtles are always doing telepathy with us, so very calm creatures. Well, Manitou does it more often. That's what the male reptile has. They're just a bit aggro. If we don't let him out because of the rain, his shell always bangs against the window in such a way that you can hear it all the way to the top floor. But otherwise, the funniest thing is, you enter the living room and suddenly you have to look at him and then you see him staring at you. He does telepathy. And then you can read it. So the healthy web of life, everyone rests within themselves. Everyone makes sure that they have a good commute. So, for example, women who only live for relationships and opening up, that they also train the aggro side, including defense and boundaries, instead of being pushed into being even more of a victim through spirituality. It's not about religion, it's about life, but in the full sense, in an energetic full sense. And when you are full in your energy, you are powerful, because your normal basic equipment, like Manitou, who communicates with us telepathically, is your full basic equipment as a free living being, that you have infinite power and infinite abilities. And anyone who makes a religion out of it being about mysticism or spirituality is starting to piss me off. It's about super thorough anti-cultural trauma therapy for a culture that Jesus wanted to create. He wanted to create a different culture but not a religion. And people hold on to their small values. And then you can be wild too. You shouldn't just be nice and good and be a victim so that anyone from the lower class can leave at any time or something like that. Rather, I want Mistis who can walk through Neukölln proudly, freely, and self-confidently, because they know if they are attacked that they can defend themselves well. Of course, with the sentence in mind, I can't lose the fight that I don't fight, but instead of being frightened from an early age and being given a deficit consciousness, we believe that we are dependent on the culture. It depends on us, on our life force. We can donate our own items at any time. So everyone is a leader. It's somehow ridiculous to shed such well-behaved eggshells as this. I wouldn't say arrogant Bonhoeffer, who does something similar and says it's about this world or something. He started with the Dilthey philosophy of life and so on, and then also this life concept of resistance and surrender. But it's just a concept of life. The guy was still proud. Yes, who am I? Am I that one? Am I that one? When I step out of my cell, that's the right direction. But he's still busy with roles. So you are an infinite field of consciousness and possibilities, and the roles are within you. You never matter. So this is the Roman concept of persona again, the one through which the sound penetrates. So you create your worker, but you can change your entire relationship in a flash by changing your energy values. And that was it. But my goal, as I said, is precisely not to dominate, because that is the principle of culture. Some great leadership figure, but that you can do nothing wrong, that you get out of any passivity and start leading in relationships, leading at work, and everything like that. So really live your life instead of letting yourself be bullied with good, bad, right, and wrong. This is not like Nietzsche, beyond good and evil. I'll empty you of the Superman. In all his aphorisms on the genius of morality, he also has this Philistine who is a bit spiritually aggressive. So simply, the bourgeois do-gooder for whom there are no higher values than being a good citizen, he was so attacked, he was on drugs, and taught this Superman to trust Zarathustra. That's just not possible. There is nothing more ingenious than the difference between a domestic pig and a wild boar. So the free high-born, bristly wild boar, that it's peaceful for now, but you can't let it take the butter out of your bread. And it can also be extremely dangerous as a female. So don't say, but I want to play a good, six-faced mother pig role and be nice to everyone. This cannot be messed up. So this own primal energy, which is more than just reduced to sexuality by Wilhelm Reich, but you are life energy, and when you are full of life energy, your body is no longer solid, but rather an individual who is at rest. Within itself, you in a state of unity and connected to everything, and everything radios you and you radio everything. And then what works will happen? Would you say that we have already achieved what you call invisible churches? Yes. So actually it's not about church, but rather that people form a living network again. But first of all, they are individuals who are at peace with themselves and actually stand by their limits and no longer play roles. So roles are absolutely unnecessary limitations. You are much more than... So don't act according to rules anymore. So it's not against anything. So don't be crazy. So don't get into trouble. It's about this self-respect for your own power, this sense of how beautiful and strong you actually were, and continuing this broken line of puberty more victoriously sounds exaggerated again, because it's not about defeating anyone, but that you simply move your own guiding beam, and you don't have to sit there for long. What is my calling? Just try it out. So really wild beasts again. That sounds exaggerated again because the culture presents everything so aggressively. But in any case, not well behaved, externally regulated. That's the trap. Life within you is good, and you are connected to one. And if you are bullied too much, you become angry and highly aggressive. So no squirrel now has a bad instinct for aggression, or no wild boar, an aggressive instinct. And for that, she first needs a wild boar culture. And man is no more stupid than a wild boar on the oak hills. And when we rest within ourselves again, the animals read us out and let us get very close to them. And when they notice that we are open to their impulses, they also take care of us. That sounds crazy. Suzanne experiences it with her cat. So everything is actually very well coordinated. Now I'm almost quoting Leibniz again. It is a pre-stabilized harmony. And then comes, I have nothing against culture either, but this is, your life force is being sucked away. And it will be distributed somewhere, but it won't end up with you. Just as landscape is quilted and animals and farm animals are transformed. So every animal is happy to give you something that it brings with you. But it doesn't want to be slaughtered, not as a calf-bearing machine. So even with the organic farmer, there is a cow. The cows don't even have names anymore, but that's the 118th. And somehow it's now 8 years, or was 12 years, a lot of milk and a lot of calves. Yes, now it should just go to the slaughterhouse, because the efficiency rate is no longer correct at any age. So that's what I mean. Even the organic farmer doesn't even have a relationship with his 118 anymore and is not grateful to her for what she has given. And for me, that is a symbol of everything being copied. And for that, you have to protect yourself properly. But you can signal to yourself that there is something to be gained from you. Play with greed. Set a trap for him. So take back what was taken from you, but not in a bad sense. But no longer this limitless empathy and, so to speak, the religious paste on top. So God is life, and He protects the life in you. And He is also the truth. He reveals everything.